So we look then at this A grade response, and it's really important to know that you've got your AO1 and AO2. Obviously bear those always in mind, and these are the criteria we're going to try and hit, and my essay plan is down here, which I'm going to keep referring to, hopefully that I'm hoping that I stick to it. Now this is about 1,170 words long, which is long for an exam response. I probably would only expect 2/3 of that from an A or an A star response if I was in an exam. The reason I've actually put a little more in is just so you can see the same skills being used again and again, which hopefully allow you to be able to replicate them more easily. Again, I'm going to be referring this, stopping to these the whole way through, and hopefully we'll hit all of them a couple of times. In an exam, I'd only expect you to hit them maybe once or twice each, or maybe twice each actually, to be sure of it, just so you show that it wasn't a fluke. And we're going to be looking, note please, if you have watched the C grade one as well, or read the C grade one as well, the amount of, sorry, the stark difference in the way this is actually written to try and get higher marks. Okay. Of all the characters in the play, Sheila is the one who is meant to resonate with us the most. She undergoes the most telling change and ends up supporting the inspector, who we feel is the personification of righteous morality. She breaks the limitations set upon her by her parents' expectations, and she becomes the voice that Priestley wishes the post-war generation to have. So again, in that, I've answered the question straight away, but I've also started to touch upon the ideas that I'm actually going to be commenting on in the actual essay. So obviously that last part there is a reference to the themes that I'm actually going to be discussing, and obviously there's two. There's obviously the breaking of the limitations, obviously a reference to independence, and the voice piece of Priestley's post-war generation is obviously a reference to the socialism that he championed. To enable the character to change so much, her flaws have to be evident and abundant before the metamorphosis occurs. Priestley obliges in the stage directions, offering Sheila as a girl, showing her immaturity even though she's in her 20s and she's pleased with life. Okay, so just to stop there, so Priestley obliges in the stage directions, so you can see straight away I'm talking about her being materialistic, so I'm sticking to my plan, and obviously I'm looking at a stage direction rather than action, but still my point is made, and I'm managing to look at a close analysis of the details. Okay, so I haven't just given a like the whole sentence. I've actually emphasized both areas being separate. So here I say, which is rather damning, as we soon realize that she has accomplished, all she has accomplished is that she's her father's daughter and gotten engaged. So I've said that she's childish in her 20s, and obviously she's pleased with life even though she's done nothing. In giving her such a star in the audience's eyes, we see how trapped Sheila is, not only through her dependence on men, which is a problem that haunts Eva, but also in growing up in an environment where such a course of action was to be expected. Now, there's my beginning of an insightful, exploratory response to the task, in that I'm actually looking at the ways in which Sheila needs to change, obviously, because the beginning or the opening or the way she's set up for us is going to be in stark contrast to how she does at the end. So I have to kind of mention and actually analyze the ways in which she's shown to be childish, and I'm kind of doing that there. And here I'm actually trying to do a response to the text as well, and then that's really kind of summed up here. The dependence on men, which is one of the themes and the ideas, but it's also a problem that haunts Eva, and that's slightly exploratory because I'm actually showing how this is a problem not just for this one character, but a problem for other characters as well. So obviously that gives me some, or showing some insight into the text as well. And again, obviously reference to the time. Now, I don't get any marks here for referencing that the idea is of the time. The point I'm actually making here, what I'm trying to get, is the ideas and themes, and that is an idea expected at the time. But I don't get any marks for mentioning it in a contextual sense. What I may get marks for here is actually looking at the idea that, you know, it's tied to the need to change this. I hope that makes sense. It will be clearer when we actually look at section B, because section B obviously will reference the cultural significance a lot more. 1912, the time in which the play is set, is offered by Priestley as a stifling environment under the control of those out of touch and hypocritical, epitomised by Alderman McGarity. In transforming herself from these stereotypical beginnings, Sheila becomes the embodiment of Priestley's hope for the generation watching in 1945. So this section here, again, I'm going through my 6.1 and 6.2. I'm actually exploring those ideas, especially again exploring the text by mentioning another character who's hypocritical, and obviously I'm showing the ideas and themes of what Priestley wants, and also in talking about it, even just in mentioning it here, I'm saying that Priestley is indicating this to us, although I don't have to, you know, part of quality writing isn't just keep going, and I'm showing this, and this shows this, and this shows this. So I wouldn't just say Priestley's doing, Priestley's doing, Priestley's doing. You just mention it and you kind of move on with some confidence. Sheila's situation at the start of play also offers a negative view of marriage. So again, just on that line there, I'm touching upon this element here. It's obviously one of convenience for Burling, who looks forward to no longer having to compete. No longer having to compete with his friendly rivals, and her fiancé lies about cheating on her, saying he was awfully busy. Both men in her life of note, not counting the squiffy brother, do not have her best interests at heart, so we're instantly exposed to the danger of such marriages and the dependence that stems from them. Obviously, Priestley is championing independence by giving Sheila every reason to want to escape such a life. So again, my 6.1 and 6.2, referring to the actual task, why she's going to change, obviously because she's only going to change because she has to have a reason to. And I'm also looking at different people in the text, exploring the actual text, looking at how poorly they actually have how they don't actually have her best interests at heart, etc. And again, I'm looking at 6.5. I'm looking at the ideas of the imaginative idea of themes, and the reason this is slightly more imaginative is because the idea that I've actually got here is I'm actually focusing on the one of marriage, whereas you remember in the C grade one I kind of just looked at the more obvious ones, and obviously marriage is a little more of an imaginative topic to actually delve into for this text than just those first four. But obviously I've mentioned change a lot, and obviously the idea of the younger generation's voice, and obviously we'll come to the others as well. Priestley hints at her naivety even further through stage directions and the infantile language in her speech. So here I'm actually in parts of slack, so very obviously, and obviously I'm going to start looking at, it seems like I'm going to start looking at 6.3, 6.4. Showing him to nature as she's still admiring her ring, which her father, while her father makes his speech, so much so that he has to call her to attention, and she says, as one would expect a child to do, "Sorry, Daddy." Couple this with a reference to Mummy, and we see just how cocooned she is under the watch of her parents. So again, this is showing the dependence, and that is actually being highlighted, and obviously showing how childish she is, and setting up the idea of how much she needs to change and how stark the contrast is going to be. But Priestley can offer us completely devoid of consciousness. Part of the playwright's craft lies in the signals offered of impending change. So obviously here I'm starting to refer to the evaluation of the writer's use, and I'm actually talking about the way that he's going to signpost something, obviously the signal being offered of the impending change. Sheila's is seen in that she's brave enough to challenge Gerald as to his whereabouts all of last summer and warns him, "I shan't get used to you working long hours." So again, this is a close analysis to detail here. This is an extremely effective anchor for the character, showing that she has her own mind, which will be fully developed as the play does. She outlines her independence to her mother, who got used to her father's late nights away, and perhaps here, noting the contribution women made after both wars in so many ways, Priestley is willing them to make the next step, independence and control of their own destinies, just as they had to do when the men went around fighting the world wars. Now, the last line is actually, it's probably badly written and quite simple, but the idea is I'm trying to put in a reference that, after the wars things changed, and the idea is that women obviously took a much greater role in kind of like a societal sense in owning shops, and obviously doing munitions and nursing, etc., etc. So many more roles were open to them, and there was so much more independence that they had to take. It was thrust upon them. Obviously, when men weren't around, that's very simplified, but it does have an echo of truth in it. And obviously, I'm just kind of mentioning it there and I'm not mentioning it in terms of simply as a historical context. I'm saying that Priestley is willing them to take the next step of this independence. So what I'm tying this historical reference to isn't that, oh look, I know some social historical reference. I'm actually saying this is part of the ideas that Priestley is championing. So I'm actually putting it from the writer's viewpoint, which is why hopefully it will hit some of this 6.5 here. And earlier when I actually kind of mentioned the anchor, again, the way the writer has actually set things up to affect the readers and the audience. The watershed moment in the change, and when she realizes the consequences of what she did, she is not present when the inspector first announces the way that Eva dies, allowing Priestley to use Eric's "my God" to show the feelings of the other half of the younger generation. So again, I'm exploring the text there, obviously with what other characters say, and I'm also looking at the theme of the younger generation, but more importantly, to let Sheila step into a man's world where they're discussing something important, something that she as a girl should be kept from. Again, exploratory in that I'm using close analysis of something else, as the inspector duly notes. Such a situation would be unheard of in 1912, and it's only through the inspector's confident demand for her to stay that she takes part in the conversation at all, as her father has insisted she run along. So again, I'm exploring the other characters' attitudes towards her, and the idea, again, it's quite an original. I don't know if I actually got into here class change. Something. No, actually, I haven't actually put status. So obviously the status there, the idea that I'm referring to is that women, had no place being involved in such conversations. If the policeman came in and obviously wanted to talk to someone, then the women, would shuffle off to another room and leave that business to the men, quote unquote. But obviously here, Priestley's championing the idea that, women stay and take a part just as much as anyone else. And then I highlight kind of the old ideas by the fact that her father tells her to run along, and she doesn't, which again shows some of her independence. Once there, her emotions on the subject link strongly to that of the audience on the situation. The directions indicate she is rather distressed. Sorry, that should be there. The directions indicate that she is rather distressed, and the use of the dash in "oh, how terrible" gives us an indication of the enormity of the scenario to her, as she needs to pause before speaking. So again, I'm looking at my 6.3 and 6.4, the way something's actually written. I'm looking at her speech, so I'm still attributing to Slacked, and it's a close analysis because I'm looking at something as small as a dash. Naively, she thinks it is an accident at first. But she is first to assimilate. But she is first to assimilate with the inspector and Priestley's view that not looking after less fortunate in society is akin to being conspirators in their demise. So that sentence there is it's decent, akin to being conspirators in their demise. So it's fluent. That's probably better. It's a lot better than what comes before it. Of the view that not looking after less fortunate in society. So obviously, you will try and make some of your writing look a little bit more dramatic or look a little bit better. If I'd written the whole thing like I've written that sentence before, then obviously I wouldn't be getting an A. But obviously dropping things in like this just shows there is some control over language here. By saying that you talk as if you were responsible, you talk as if we were responsible, which is soon fully realised as she sees the picture. Priestley notes the inspector moves nearer a light before showing it to her, highlighting that she is the one being inspected. So obviously there I'm looking at the way that the writers actually put it together, and obviously I'm looking at another character. So again, I'm exploring the ideas, and obviously I've talked about how the audience is going to be reacting to it. So again, lots of reasons. Now I've actually written, I think, and I'll probably ask these, I'm going to just check on this for me. I think by here I've written more than enough for an A, but I haven't fully answered the question. So you actually see in my paragraphs today, we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and that's the 6th one. So I probably only need 3 of those. And just because I've referenced everything again and again and again, and you notice that I keep coming back to these and going, yeah, there is. But I probably only need 3 of those to actually get this. So I could half that essay right there, and I'd still be on the same grade. Again, like I said earlier, I'm just kind of doing a lot to show you exactly what is involved in it. The skills that are involved, so you can replicate them more easily. On returning after composing herself, she takes full responsibility for the way she treated Eva, acknowledging it was my own fault before turning on Gerald, showing that she won't be looked down on as like a scolded child, asserting her independence and highlighting suspicion she has, knowingly offering. Sorry, you miss one comma, and then that whole sentence doesn't make sense. Let's try again. Before turning on Gerald, showing she won't be looked down on like a scolded child, asserting her independence and highlighting suspicion she has, knowingly offering, I expect you've done things you're ashamed of. Soon after, Gerald's link is revealed and he tries to hide it, the opposite of her trying to tell the truth, and she's driven to ridicule as she laughs hysterically and asserts, he knows you fool, you'll see. The repetition here not only strengthens the prophecy she's making, but also gives us her a link to the inspector's realm of power. She can see the future, much as the audience can, as they are from the future, so to speak. While watching this, they would thus empathise with Priestley's demand for a change in the way society works, keeps its secrets, and pretends, as the Burning puts it, that they are respectable citizens and not criminals. So there I've kind of hit a lot of that. We've got a big response, an insightful response to the task, an insightful response to the text, because obviously I've talked about Gerald and how he compares to her as she's actually going through it. I've got close analysis of detail when I talk about the repetition, etc., and then looking at the evaluation of the writer's use of language in the fact that she laughs hysterically, because I mentioned that drives her to ridicule. And evaluation then of the writer's language and convincing imaginative interpretation of themes and ideas, because the theme and idea that I'm actually trying to get across is in this whole last section there. And again, there's a bit of an insightful exploratory response at the end, because I keep kind of bringing back, showing the contrast that other people are actually saying about it. The repetition here not only strengthens the prophecy she's making, she also gives clear links to the inspector's realm of power. She can see the future, and that's probably the most important part, because it's actually talking about what Priestley would want the audience to actually see, or how the audience would actually want to feel about it. After Gerald's confession, Sheila shows her maturity. Rather than playing the wrong party, she respects the honesty shown. I respect you more than I've ever done, and then breaks up with him, showing her independence and rational mind growing. By the end, she fully stands up to her parents who accuse her of being childish. Her tone is sharp and defiant as she was flaring up. It's you two are being childish, trying not to face facts, and then mocking them by saying, I suppose we're nice people when they believe the inspector isn't real. You're probably already tired of me pointing back to this, but there it is. Her tone is enough to show that she has grown above the self-serving world of her parents and invites the audience to look down on others fawning over their reputations. And at that point, just as the family soon will, when the phone rings, they too have to face, again, just one missing comma, and I have no idea what I actually wrote. Just as the family soon will, when the phone rings, they too have to face facts. The world they knew has changed dramatically, and they can no longer be subservient to the class system and the capitalistic attitudes that created the world of the Burlings. Priestley preaches that the younger generation has the chance to change things, as the inspector of the world wars has shown the system of entitlement and self-centeredness no longer applies, and that the world could be a better place through honest social responsibility towards all. I think the best part of that, if any, is that the world wars. Obviously, in context of this play, the World Wars here is referred to as an inspector coming to actually look in on society and actually show the ills that were in society. And what I would try, obviously, in concluding, is try and end on something quite powerful, because when you actually start and end, some people actually reference this quite heavily. You know, you can actually tell like the level of a student's writing just from the way that they would actually put their opening and their ending. So try and make sure that your opening is quite punchy and that your ending is quite punchy, and that will always allow you to demonstrate to the examiner, without having said that much, you know, the level of ability that you're actually working with. Especially here in the conclusion, you know, looking at it from that way, that's quite insightful again. And yeah, sorry, I'm just going on about it. So let's just look again. Did I hit all this? Materialistic ideas, yep, touched on all that. Language, mummy, women in society, definitely. Reaction, mum, not getting used to it, yep. Upset, linking to society, yep. Helping the inspector, no, I didn't actually go and talk about that when I actually talked about helping the inspector. I didn't give many examples of that, and that's probably because I was already getting into it I was far too long already. The lessons learned, she passes on. The voice of a generation, yep. Independence, yep, I came to that loads of times. The giving back of the ring, yep, I touched upon it, but I didn't give evidence of it. And the idea of who she should be, again, that's just a reference in terms of the being Berling's mouthpiece. So yeah, I think I touched upon all those themes, so hopefully that will get an A. Please check back in one of the next videos to see whether it does or doesn't. And if you want to have a copy of this, I'm not going to actually spell check it much more than this, so forgive me, but I want to make a lot more videos rather than just perfect this. It's going to take me some time, so I'm just going to pop it up onto the Facebook page, so please head there and download it if you wish.